that's good stuff, man. Welcome to the Jungle, Bengals fans. I'm Kyle Phelps, and who they think gonna beat them Bengals? Certainly not the Raiders, as the Bengals completed what I think counts as a sweep. This time by a score of 26-19. But before we get into that, I'd just like to ask that you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. Really helps my channel out, and it helps you to be the first to know when we put out these recaps after Bengals games, as well as game previews that we do before Bengals games with our excellent team of correspondents, NFL coverage on Tuesdays, and Battle of Ohio podcast clips on the off days. So the biggest difference between this game and the first time that we beat the Raiders, this one was in the playoffs, baby! The Cincinnati Bengals have officially ended their 31-year playoff drought against the same team that it began against back in 1991. The curse of Bo Jackson is officially lifted from the burden of the city. And damn it, it's about fucking time too. The last time I attended a Cincinnati Bengals playoff game was 16 years ago when Carson Palmer's knee got torn up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. To see it all come full circle like this it's honestly a little bit overwhelming. We've waited so long as Bengals fans to see this team truly compete and be relevant in the postseason. And man, I don't mean this concept that they could have potentially done something special in 05 and 15 if the quarterbacks hadn't gotten hurt. Like everybody talks about, oh, they could have won the Super Bowl in 05, oh, they could have won the Super Bowl in 15 if it hadn't been for Andy's thumb and Carson's knee, you know? This team's actually going out there and doing it, man. So the way they did it wasn't quite what a lot of people expected. In general, the formula for success for this team has been to score 30-plus points. They came 4 short of that today. But Joe Burrow turned in a 110.4 passer rating, and Jamar Chase still turned in a 139 all-purpose yard day today. The formula for getting a win was different than a lot of people expected too. Generally, this team has gotten off to slow starts in the first half and then come alive in the second. This week, the Bengals scored on virtually every drive of the first half except for the last one, and that was just a kneel down. Other than that, Joe Burrow was damn near surgical marching this team down the field. On their first drive, Joe Burrow found a matchup he loved immediately, and that was Brandon Facyson one-on-one with Jamar Chase. If you recall back to the first matchup between these two teams, Brandon Facyson got absolutely bullied by Jamar Chase and ended up grading as the Raiders' worst player on defense per PFF. This week, for some reason, Gus Bradley decided it made a whole lot of sense to try that matchup again. And if you can't guess by the tone of my voice, it didn't work. Burrow and Chase combined for a total of 37 yards on the way to a touchdown on the offense's first drive of the game. The Raiders had scored a field goal on their first drive, but the Bengals' touchdown with 4:31 left in the first quarter ended up giving the Bengals a lead that they would hold on to for the rest of the game. The Raiders got the ball back on the next drive and got a big play to Zay Jones right away, but then Bengals defense finally buckled down. The Raiders weren't able to get their heads out of their asses, and the noise from the crowd ended up drawing a false start at one point. Then, the $60 million man, Trey Hendrickson, came down with a strip sack from hell. Had anyone other than Larry Ogunjobi been the one to recover it, it probably would have been a scoop and score. But Ogunjobi hilariously waddled over to the ball and couldn't outrun offensive tackle Colton Miller for the 26 yards it would have taken to get it to the house. Which is fine. It's fine, honestly. He gets paid to create havoc at the line, not sprint for touchdowns. It was still pretty hilarious, though. Infuriatingly, the Bengals offense couldn't do much with that gift. They netted about 2 total yards on the ensuing set of downs and ended up having to settle for a field goal. It's still basically a free 3 points, right? But then they did it again on their next drive. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase combined for 35 yards on the drive and ended up knocking on the door of the end zone. Then the offense completely fell apart. Evan McPherson ended up being called on again for a 30-yard field goal. But this point you're starting to feel like the Bengals aren't pulling away as much as they should be. If they could take advantage of the situations they're putting themselves in, they could be up 21-3 right now. Instead, it's 13-3. The Raiders drove down the field and got a field goal of their own at that point, so now it's 13-6. What should be a Bengals blowout in the making is now no more than a one-possession game. That is, until they put together one of the defining drives of the game. Jamar Chase got a pretty big play in for 15 yards at one point, but the defining biggest play of the drive was a 29-yard grab by CJ Uzomah that flipped the field position on a drive that was looking initially like the Bengals were going to struggle to move the ball at all. Then they ended up getting into scoring range, and Joe Burrow connected with Tyler Boyd on an insane play where he extended the play so much that he almost ran out of bounds. Then ended up making the connection. A whistle was blown at one point because one of the judges thought that Burrow had stepped out, and a lot of people were mad about it because they're saying the down should be replayed because, the whistle interfered with the play. But if you watch the play, the whistle clearly isn't noticed by anyone on the field and no one stops playing. And I get it's the rule, but at the same time, if the Bengals had lost that touchdown because of an officiating error, Bengals fans would have been absolutely livid. So the fact that Raiders fans are livid about it is just like, get over it. Somebody was going to be livid. Some Raiders fans are complaining because they feel like it unfairly gave the Bengals a touchdown. A touchdown that they fully earned, by the way. But like I said, Bengals fans would have been absolutely livid if it had undone the touchdown. And at the end of the day, the Bengals probably would have still made a field goal on the drive even if they had to replay the down and didn't get the score that they were going for. The fact that the Bengals ended up winning on more than the difference between a touchdown and field goal means that it's honestly kind of silly that it gets stuck on that one thing when there are so many other officiating errors on both sides of the game. The Raiders in particular got away with so many holding penalties on their final drive in the fourth quarter. They were gifted an absolutely unbelievable roughing the passer penalty on Khalid Kareem, where he literally just kind of bumped into Derek Carr's side. Like seriously, if that was a special teams play, then you might have called running into the kicker, not roughing the kicker. And to the best of my knowledge, there's no running into the quarterback penalty in football. If there is, then we might as well just start calling it soccer. But we'll talk more about the implications of that roughing the passer call later. For now, the Bengals are up 20-6, which is nice. They could be up 28-6 if the offense was more efficient, but, I guess you'll take what you can get. Unfortunately, the Bengals defense completely fell apart on the Raiders' final drive before the half. They looked like they were going to get the stop at first, making the Raiders fight for every inch and using 3 downs for every first down and keep that clock running. Until Derek Carr busted out a 20-yard run because nobody was paying attention to him. Then, defensive holding penalty on Eli Apple on that same play tacked on 5 more yards to the end of that run. From there, it just felt like the Raiders were going to ride momentum all the way into the end zone right before the half, and that is actually, in fact, what happened. So, the Bengals went into the half with a 20-13 lead. But winning that coin toss at the beginning of the game and getting the ball first in the second half turns out to be a huge strategic boost at this point, especially because you're going into the second half with a 7-point lead. Unfortunately, the Bengals offense couldn't repeat their first half success. They didn't find the end zone once and had to settle for field goals and punts the whole time. It was just little instances of them just shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly, over and over again. But in this case, it seemed like they weren't really able to overcome those situations. For example, there was a time when the Bengals gave the ball to Joe Mixon on 3rd and 1 at the Raiders' 10-yard line, and I swear to God, he picked up 1.5 yards on the play. Everybody in the stadium thought he picked up 1.5 yards on the play, including Raiders fans, but the refs marked him down short. The Bengals got into formation on the 4th and 1 play, like they were going to go for it, and ended up taking a timeout and settling for a field goal. And it was just infuriating, because what I don't understand is how, if you're going to take the timeout anyway, why wouldn't you just challenge the previous play? Because I thought it was pretty ambiguous, you weren't really sure what was going to happen. So, regardless of whether you're sure you think you might have a chance of winning the challenge or not, if you think there's even a minimal chance, then you take the challenge, because you're going to take the timeout anyway. Worst case scenario, you lose that timeout that you were planning on taking. Luckily, the defense continued to show up in the second half and didn't let the Raiders find the end zone either. The Raiders kept the game close throughout the whole second half though, and ended up cutting it to a one-possession game late in the fourth quarter. The Bengals predictably went 3 and out on offense and, managing to make the Raiders burn 2 timeouts, but Kevin Huber had a pretty bad punt, and the Raiders ended up with 2 minutes and a timeout to drive down the field for a touchdown starting at their own 35-yard line. On the first play, Josh Jacobs completely gashed the Bengals defense for 15 yards, and then they got an extra 15 yards for that roughing the passer penalty that I mentioned earlier that was just complete crap. With the Raiders only having 1 timeout, that extra 15 yards with less than 2 minutes to go was damn near backbreaking for momentum, at least as far as the Bengals go. Had the controversial touchdown earlier that I was talking about been taken off the board and they ended up having to settle for a field goal, that sequence of events would have gotten the Raiders in field goal range on a completely dumbfounding call. And if you needed an obvious example of how the officiating was just absolutely horrendous on both sides, there you go. Either way, the Raiders are in scoring range now. The Bengals defense looked great at first, setting the Raiders up with a 3rd and 17 after a clutch B.J. Hill sack. But once again, Derek Carr found a wide open man when the Bengals could have put the game away to extend the drive. This kept going on until the Raiders got the ball to 1st and goal at the Bengals 9. They spiked the ball to stop the clock. Then there was an incomplete pass to Zay Jones, incomplete pass to Hunter Renfrow, and awesome! The Bengals defense is finally doing their job, and, they need a touchdown, so it's like you can technically really stop them anywhere on the field. But they've waited until the very last possible second to do it. So now the entire game rests on this one 4th and 9 play. If the Raiders can get the ball in the end zone, and the Bengals haven't been able to consistently stop the pass all day, then the Raiders could tie it and force overtime, or they could possibly elect to go for 2 and break every single heart in Cincinnati on the spot. If the Bengals get a stop, the game's over. The stadium erupts in pure ecstasy as the Bengals complete their first playoff win in 31 years. Well, you've seen the beginning of this video, so you already know what happened. The final nail in the coffin was linebacker Jermaine Pratt intercepting Derek Carr the same way Vontaze Burfict did, except on the other side of the field, 6 years ago against Landry Jones. Derek Carr thought he had Zay Jones for a touchdown. And if you weren't at this game, I am telling you, this stadium absolutely erupted. The TV broadcast didn't do the reaction justice. In fact, I took a short video of mine and the rest of Section 310's reaction after the win.
Let's go, baby! Let's go! It's over!
Damn, that's good stuff, man. So now the Bengals are postseason victors for the first time in my entire life. They live to fight another week. With the Bills absolutely destroying the Patriots later in the day, they'll most likely travel to Nashville to play the Titans in the divisional round. Although, to be fair, if the Steelers somehow pull off the upset over the Chiefs tonight, the Bengals will be traveling to Buffalo to play the Bills. Personally, I'd rather play the Titans than the Bills next week, but I do think the Bengals are capable of beating either team. And damn, if that doesn't feel so good to say. My confidence in this Bengals team is currently the absolute highest it's ever been in my entire life. I really do believe that the Cincinnati Bengals, of all fucking teams, can beat anyone and win a Super Bowl this year. Unfortunately, that was most likely the last game that the Bengals will play in Paul Brown Stadium this season, barring the Steelers pulling off the impossible and making it through both Kansas City and Tennessee to meet the Bengals in the AFC Championship. But you know what, that's okay, because we finally got to see a playoff win in Cincinnati for the first time in 31 years. Now, the Bengals need to go and win some playoff games on the road. Interestingly enough, they've never done that. Every single playoff victory the Cincinnati Bengals have ever had have all been in Cincinnati. Honestly, my mindset about it right now is that it's just yet another box that this Cincinnati Bengals team needs to check off like they have so many other boxes this year. And it seems like the last 8 weeks or so, it's just check, 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 just keep on checking off those boxes, and that's what they're doing. And if they can do that, what can't they accomplish? But what did this game mean to you guys? Let me know in the comments, and I'll feature the best ones in my next recap video. Like this one from Keon Archer. who commented on my Week 18 Browns loss recap video by saying, "Can y'all beat the Raiders, please?" Yes, Keon. Yes, we can. And yes, we did. The Cincinnati Bengals are on to the divisional round, and the Las Vegas Raiders are on to the 2022 NFL Draft. You love to see it. But anyway, y'all can catch more of what I do at Kyle Phelps 92 on Twitter, facebook.com/thephelps, my Bengals coverage at atbnetwork.com/Cincinnati Bengals, the Battle of Ohio podcast, which is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and right here if you subscribe. But that's it for me this week, guys. Let's fucking go! I'll leave y'all, as always, with a hootie!